Do you want to get better at receiving, but you're not sure where to start? Or maybe you're looking for drills that you can do by yourself or even with your team. Well, by the end of this video, you're going to understand why receiving matters, the 3 biggest problems of receiving, and my 5 best drills to solve those problems. So let's jump in, and don't just skip to the drills. We'll get to there, but if you don't understand why receiving matters and what the problems are, the drills won't be as effective. So first, why does receiving even matter? Receiving, in my opinion, and in the larger catching community, is the most important skill in catching. And the reason why is because of 2 things: frequency and impact. In other words, it happens more than anything else, and it has a huge impact on the game. The difference between a 1-ball 2-strike count and a 2-ball 1-strike count is like 200 points. In fact, I was just talking to a minor leaguer, and his whole organization emphasizes this more than anything else. He said if you get behind in the first pitch, the batting average is about 400. So you're throwing a Mike Trout every at-bat. But if you get ahead, they're hitting about 200. And that's someone who might get sent down. And the only difference is a strike versus a ball. So this is a huge emphasis from the pitching side, but also there's all these balls around the zone that are borderline that, depending on how the catcher catches it, either makes it a strike or makes it a ball. And according to catching coach legend Jerry Weinstein, he said that there's about 18 to 36 of these every single game. These are pitches that the pitcher executed well, but it's on the catcher to catch it well. Otherwise, they take that borderline pitch and they take it out of the zone. So receiving happens more than anything else, and these borderline pitches have a massive impact because it swings the batting average by like 200 points, which is either gonna give up runs or save runs, and at the same time, it saves your pitchers too. So it's a really big deal. So now let's talk about the 3 big problems that happen when we receive. So the biggest problem is what I call the bounce. And the bounce happens when the glove approaches the ball from the center of the zone. Because what will happen is if the glove is going this way and it catches the ball, and we're trying to frame it back to the center of the zone, at some point it will need to stop and it will appear to bounce before it comes back. This is why you hear catching coaches say, stay underneath the ball, because they're trying to keep you underneath the ball so you can catch it up, because if you get on top of the ball, you bounce it down like this. You can see the bounce. So instead, we want to stay underneath the ball and catch it up. Because if we stay underneath the ball in the high pitch, we catch it up, which is away from the center of the zone. So truly, the bounce is about looking where the center of the zone is, and looking where the ball is, and then getting outside of it and catching it back in. If we approach it from the center, whichever way we go, we will bounce the glove. And if we double click into the bounce, there's going to be 3 A's of how someone actually bounces the glove. And this is where it's especially helpful if you have slow motion video review. The first A is what's called an approach. And this is where if you draw a line at the point of catch, you can freeze where someone catches the ball, and then you can back up a few frames and see which way their glove approaches it from. Those few frames determine the approach of the ball. So for example, if a pitch is thrown here and I approach it like this, what will happen is I will continue moving this way. So this is a little bit less of a bounce. A typical bounce is someone comes here and then goes down and then comes back. What I found is if you draw a quadrant and you lose on both of the planes, the horizontal and the vertical, you get an exaggerated bounce. If I win on one of the 2 planes, I get what's called a circle. And what we want instead is a triangle where we have a straight line and a straight line. So the approach is all about where do we actually catch the ball, draw a plus sign on it, and back up a few frames and see which way we approach it. We want to get outside of wherever it is. So draw a point in the center of the strike zone and then go just outside. That's where you want your glove to get to before you go. The second A of a bounce is an angle. And so an angle really comes from drawing the angle of the glove. Basically what happens here is when we give a target, our angle should be flat. Nowadays, you see a lot of guys preset the angle. I think that looks bad for the pitcher. I think you should give him a flat target, and then we can corkscrew down into our triple threat. But I don't think that you should give a target to the pitcher like this. Give it to him flat, and then you can take it away and turn it down. But then once we turn down, you can see our angle is pretty vertical. Now there's different types of triple threats. So here the angle would be a little bit diagonal. But then what happens is what people will do is they'll get flat and then have to go vertical and then back up. So even if we win on the approach and we get outside, if we get flat and then get vertical and then go, there's going to be a bit of a bounce because the angle of the glove is tilting. So we've talked about the approach, which is getting outside of the baseball. We've talked about now the angle, and the last thing is what I call arrows. Basically, if you think back to physics class in high school, there's a force vector of that ball, and it has a pretty big arrow, especially if it's going 100 miles an hour. Your glove needs to have an arrow bigger than the ball, otherwise you're gonna get blown back. So we need to apply greater force through the ball so that it doesn't blow us back. Now, obviously it's gonna have some sort of impact, but we need to push through. Some people like to gather and they kind of use that to ride the momentum up. But one way or another, we can't let that ball dominate us. We have to apply force back into the ball so that it doesn't blow us backwards. So to recap, there's 3 big problems that cause a bounce. The first one is not getting around the ball. That's our approach. The second one is the angle of our glove. And the third one is an arrow where we need to apply enough force to go through it. And that leads us right to the old way versus the new way. If you look at catchers back in the day, they caught like this. 2 hands, butt up in the air, hands down, arms straight, and stiff as a board. And when they would catch, they would almost always approach the ball from the center. Fast forward to the first one-handed catcher, you have Johnny Bench, and he looks like this, where then, again, you just catch and stick. If it's down the middle, it's great, but if it's not down the middle, then you approach it from the center and push it away, which leads us to the new way, which is not just single knee, but is a pre-pitch glove load that I call a triple threat, because you can receive, block, and throw from this position, where we put our glove underneath the ball so that we can catch the low pitch back to the zone. Because as we've learned, catching this low pitch correctly is the difference between pitching to Mike Trout or someone that you've never heard of before. And by the way, if you like how I'm breaking this down, you should totally check out the Super Simple Guide to Catching, where I break down the 4 simple steps of how I help catchers from around the world get ready for varsity baseball and beyond. Just go to catchingmadesimple.com/supersimple. So all that being said, now you know why receiving is important, the 3 biggest problems with receiving, and you understand why we have the old way and the new way. Now let's get into the 5 receiving drills that I do with all my catchers, and you'll be able to see how it fits into the entire picture. Come on. So the first receiving drill that we're gonna do is going to be just a movement drill. Again, receiving the low pitch is really challenging, and if you try to have them catch really fast pitching without getting them to do their movements perfectly, it's just not gonna work. So I suggest grabbing something like a water bottle or a glove mallet, or right here I have my web gem that I put in my catcher's mitt like this. And we're gonna grab it with our hand like this so it sticks out almost like a glove would. So once we grab this and it's sticking out this end of our hand, what we wanna do is we wanna work through 5 different progressions. So we'll start here because we want a flat target. We always wanna present a flat target to the pitcher, but then position 1 is going to be our chest press down and our glove coming down to a triple threat. Now in this position, we really want to make sure that this elbow is forward. If this elbow is back, it's going to make it really hard to catch this low pitch, because as we extend, you can see we go down, versus if we get here, when we extend, we can go up. We want to give ourselves as many advantages as we can to catch the ball up. Side note, you might hear some people online say, don't catch with your elbow up, that's how you get thumbed. Let me just address that real quick before we move on, because it's really important. And if you get thumbed, it can hurt really bad. It happened to me multiple times. I believe the reason that people get thumbed is not because their elbow is up, it's because their hand is not square. You can have your elbow up and catch the ball like this, even all the way over here, and you're not gonna get thumbed. But the moment that your glove turns like this, now the only spot for that ball to go is to drive you right in the thumb, and it hurts. And that's why my left thumb looks like this and my right thumb is straight. So ultimately you can do what you want. I'm a big advocate of getting this elbow in this position because I believe that it's the best way to catch the low pitch. Obviously on the high pitch, you're not gonna go like this. You're gonna turn it over and you wanna catch it down. All that being said, when we get here to this position 1, we want our shoulders to come down. Shoulders should be just over the knees. This elbow should be forward. Then as we get to position 2, we're going to scrape. The biggest problem that people make here is they straighten their elbow. The issue with that is now you're trying to pull a 100-mile-an-hour fastball up with a straight arm. It's just not very strong. So you need to have this thing bent. And the reason that we need to keep this on the ground is because if we come up, again, if our glove gets above the ball, we have to go back down. And so we want to focus on scraping and being patient with this thing out as far as we can. From here, this is probably the biggest spot where people mess up is this position, is this elbow driving up. Other people teach this differently. And even when I see big leaguers, a lot of time they catch and extend here before their elbow gets up to their shoulder. But after working with hundreds of youth catchers, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is we extend before our elbow gets up to our shoulder. And as a result, it almost always looks choppy. But if I can work with the catcher to help them receive the ball deeper and drive the elbow up and then finish with 4-5, which we'll cover in a second, it looks really smooth. So again, feel out what works best for you and take video of yourself so that you can actually see what looks best. And if you want my help looking at the video, then check out the information on catchingmadesimple.com. So far we've covered our target, position 1 chest press, position 2 scrape, position 3 this elbow drive, and make sure that this hand hangs down. A lot of times when we get to position 3, we'll be too far extended here. From here, the hand comes up to position 4 and the glove turns position 5. So in full motion, what it looks like is this. And with the glove, it's here, here, boom. We want to make sure that we finish flat. This is probably the thing that I see make the biggest improvement for catchers, and I would spend a ton of time until you can get this right, because if you can't get the movements perfect when you're going step by step and there's not a ball coming at you, there's no chance that you're going to do it perfect on a ball that's thrown 90 miles an hour. So do those 5 steps from the middle and from the inside and from the outside, where you scrape, drive the elbow, hand, and then come up to flat. Same thing here. You also want your head to come over so that you can gain some ground and drive this thing up and catch it back to the zone. So after we get the movement down, we're gonna do it off of a short hop. Now the reason that I love a short hop is because when that ball bounces, it's coming up. So it's giving us a little bit of help in terms of catching that ball up, because it's gonna be easier to catch the ball up, whereas the ball that's going down, it's gonna be easier to catch it down. We're working on catching the low pitch up, so we want to make sure that as we translate the movement over into a ball, that we bridge it with the short hops so that we can actually get the movement. So a couple keys if you're a dad or you're a coach, here's how I'd teach you to short hop it. Do it underhand, and you want it to be in this zone right here. If you toss it out here, which I'll show you in a second, it becomes really hard. The catcher gets defensive because they're not sure where it's gonna be because it's an in-between hop, and they can't move with their feet to go pick a short hop. And then all the movement training that you're doing goes right out the window. So make sure that you give them a short hop that's deep enough that it's actually a short hop. So first, let's just get comfortable. Perfect. So that's a great example of the ball that's a little out, right? Because that ball bounced right here, and there's just no way for me to catch it on short hop. So throw it just a tiny bit deeper. Perfect. If you are coaching, like I'm typically pretty close, nice and tight, so that I can really control where I'm tossing it. So from here, there's a few progressions that we would want to have as we do these short hops. The first one would just be to just catch it and just get comfortable catching it. The second one would be to drive to a position 3 where this elbow's up. Again, a lot of catchers really struggle to get this elbow up, and so working to get to this position and have our hands still down is a drill that I've found to be really effective. This is something that you want to continue to work on, but then we want to finish flat. We want to finish with our hand right in front of our shoulder, where our glove will finish right in front of our chin. So once you get that down, you can also throw on a 4th progression of our glove. Same thing with still a short hop, just like this, where then we finish nice and flat. Another common mistake is not only that people will extend too early, but that when they finish, they'll be too extended. You want to have a little bit bend as you finish. So now we've covered movement, we've added in a ball and a short hop. The next drill that I would do if I were working with you would be to bridge a short hop and a ball in the air. So this is what it would look like. You can do it from a stance if you want, but we'll alternate short hop, finish flat, and then we go underhand ball in the air. This is probably the most effective thing when it comes to transferring the movement, because the short hop is easy, but as soon as the ball gets in the air, here's what people do. They come up, get their angle flat and their approach above the ball, and then they stab down and then bounce up. So the short hop allows us to bridge the movement and allows us to keep that same movement, and then every other rep we add in a ball, and it feels easier to catch that low pitch up to the zone. And then once you do that, we can start to preset our glove to work on the angles of getting around the ball. And again, we can bridge short hop and in the air. Same thing here, preset, short hop, and in the air. So again, just making it a little bit harder of what we established as we keep perfect movement throughout everything that we do. The fourth drill that we'll do is really trying to solve the problem of getting around the ball and winning our approach. Again, if we stay inside, we're gonna circle balls. Even if we stay underneath, we need to get outside and make a triangle shape. So the preset drills can help, but ultimately we need to be able to, from a triple threat, get outside, make the read, and catch it back. So this is where we work in, out, and then eventually we'll work up, down as well. So we'll work on getting around the ball, and we'll go outside and then inside, getting around the ball each side, and you can feel your head come with you as well. Boom. So the big thing that we're trying to work on is, again, making sure that we're actually getting outside. What happens a lot is this, where we get underneath the ball, we stay underneath the ball, but we kind of catch it out and around, and we end up creating a circle with our glove. So that's in out, where we just alternate, and that's where you can go 1-1 and then randomize it to make it harder. And then we can also go low high. Real quick, on the low pitch, we want to stay underneath and catch up. On the high pitch, we want to get on top and snap down almost like you're dunking a ball. So again, you would alternate and then you would randomize to work on your reaction. So here's a low pitch, boom, and then a high pitch, even from the triple threat, where we get on top and dunk it down. This can be great with an underhand. If they're dominating that drill and doing it perfectly, then move it back and throw it. If they're still doing that, then get it off a machine. And the fifth and most underrated receiving drill is actually just receiving. People spend so much time on different training mitts, different drills, that they don't actually get enough reps, in my opinion, with their glove, with a ball that's coming at them from a stance. And so I would recommend actually going through, calling a pitch, going through your setup, giving a target, getting to your triple threat, and then receiving the pitch, because that's what you're gonna do in the game. But oftentimes we don't practice it, which is crazy because that's literally what we do every pitch. So practice receiving in different stances and actually have someone throw the ball to you so that when you get in the game, you've received that pitch from that stance, getting into that stance hundreds and hundreds of times. So at the beginning of the video, I promised that you would understand why receiving matters, the 3 biggest problems, and the 5 best drills to solve those problems. Now you know, and if you want more help, you can reach out to me at catchingmadesimple.com. But you should be able to take this information and actually go practice this at home. And my hope is that if you're a parent and a kid, that you could practice on this in the backyard, because that had a huge impact on me with my dad as I was growing up. So if you liked this video, then you might like this video right up over here. I'm Coach Bourgeois. Catch you later.